3, 2, 1.
Here we go! Happy Freight Friday. It's beautiful across the country. We all worked our butts off this week. It's over. We made it. We're here. Grab a beer, grab your popcorn, grab your soda, whatever you want, and settle in. We're going to learn. I've got a guest for you guys. This special guest that is not often interviewed. I don't think. I could be wrong. He could be everywhere. But when I Googled you, Tom, you weren't that often interviewed. So we're excited to learn from you. One of the most prominent brands in our industry, McLeod. I think there isn't a person out there who doesn't know your company. So welcome. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. Love the background. Where are you right now so everybody can relate?
Well, I'm at the top of McLeod Towers here in Hoover, Alabama, just south of Birmingham. We're also having a great and lovely day. I appreciate you inviting me on your program. Cassandra, thank you very much.
I have to tell you, I like the long hair look. You have pictures with short hair, but I like the long hair. Does your wife like the long hair?
Yeah, my wife really encouraged me to do that. And
Yeah.
I guess the COVID era has given me that cover to do it. And so it's for her.
It was a good idea. And you're going to keep it long?
I think so far, you know.
All right, Tom, are you going to put it in a man bun one of these days?
No man bun, no ponytail.
I had to ask. Come on now.
No, sorry.
Well, we're excited to have you on. I think that a lot of people, I actually had some people reach out to me. They had questions for you. They were also excited. They said, we've been using McLeod for a long time. Let's see who we have in the crowd, at least. We have John. Drew is here. Hi, Drew. Tim Poole. Tim, thanks for the email given this morning. Tim sent me a really good, interesting, juicy email. Matt Fink is in the house. Easer Delivery. I'm so excited to have you guys here. Matt Fink says McLeod Towers. I can barely get my name on a driver's license. Legit. Tom is the OG of transportation software. You know what, Matt? Matt is right. Matt is one of our long-time followers. We love him. And Danny's here. So the OG of transportation software. Tom, right now, if someone says in our industry, I have a startup, I have a new venture I'm doing, odds are it's a TMS. Do you kind of like roll your eyes when you hear this? You're like, oh my God, another one? Like you're the monster of our industry, and you have been for 36 years. Do you roll your eyes, or do you chuckle or buy them out? What do you think? Tell us the truth.
Well, you know, sometimes success in an area depends on good timing and, you know, starting things up at a good time. That was the case for us, you know, started in the mid 80s. It was a time, you know, as I say, the transportation industry as we know it was born out of the deregulation that occurred in 1980. And simultaneously, companies were putting in computer systems for the very first time, and there was no off-the-shelf software. So to develop a product like ours, to, you know, an ERP system to run a trucking company from end to end, it was just a great time to get started. So yeah, a little tougher these days. You can't come out with a version 1.0 product and really expect to go very far. You know, you can come out with a low-end product, and there are thousands of you know, very, very small companies, but they often don't need the functionality that even you know, mid-sized carrier or freight brokerage would need. And it, despite all the you know, fast changes in technology and the tools that are available today, it still takes lots of time to develop all the features and functions that the modern transportation organization needs in order to run efficiently and to serve their customers. So certainly we don't take anything for granted. We try to act as if at any time, you know, somebody can come along and build a better mousetrap, build a better system. We've constantly got to be innovating and pushing our product forward. But there's a lot to it these days, and anybody that's wanting to get started is, you know, needs to allow for a pretty long runway.
I love that you said that, because I do think that often software companies that have been around for a long time, they start to get described as clunky, archaic, difficult to use, or all these terms they get bucketed in, but I've never heard anybody say anything like that. And people, you can put it in the comments. I mean, Tom can handle it if you disagree, but I think it's always been a growing, developing product, growing with our industry as well. So let's hear, wait, before we get into your story of how you started this company, in the 80s, who were you listening to? Like, what was your go-to music?
Well, my go-to music was in the 70s.
Yeah,
Uh,
good music in the
I have to tell
70s.
you, but yeah, you had the Allman Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
I go back to Jimi Hendrix even. So
You can't go wrong with Jimi Hendrix, ever.
yeah, there's some great groups. Crosby,
Mm-hmm.
Stills, and Nash. Some good stuff.
Janis Joplin, did you like her or not?
Yeah,
My dad didn't like
Janis
her. I
Joplin.
love her. Were you Bob Dylan guy?
I knew some Bob Dylan. So sure.
All right. So when did you, while you're listening to your music, when did you and how did you start up this company? Were you like a tech geek, started up in your garage, or were you trucking? What's the story?
Well, I had gone to work with a friend of mine who was looking to develop an idea for LTL freight rating, and we had some initial success. He designed a software product, and we sold it to Overnight Transportation, to Old Dominion, Thurston Transportation, the Marymount Corporation. Some initial success, but with deregulation, the LTL carriers had lost their geographical franchise, and so they were consolidating pretty heavily, while at the same time, the truckload carriers were opening up like crazy by the thousands.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I was reading the trade press, learning about the industry and on site working with trucking companies, I said, if we can develop a operations and freight billing and driver payroll package to handle the day-to-day processing for these companies, that can keep us paid and get this other idea going. But that turned out to be the idea that propelled us and got traction. And thankfully, we've had great customers from the beginning that have kept us pointed in the right direction. And then, as you say, one thing leads to another. We've had a lot of very bright people that have come in and done some great development work. We made some good decisions in terms of product architecture. After 15 years, we made it through a rewrite from the ground up, and that's a difficult thing to do.
What was your decision to do that? What drove you to make that decision?
Well, in the mid 80s, our product was green screen character based, and
Yep.
By the mid 90s, it was obvious you needed a graphical user interface product, and so we delayed our rewrite until it emerged the way the whole industry was going to go in terms of the whole product support and architecture and the technology. But then we started basically clean sheet of paper, restructured database, restructured everything, kept some of the types of functionality that, had worked well, and then fixed that. And it took longer than I had predicted. If you had told me it was going to take between 3 and 5 years to rewrite everything from the ground up, I said, well, we can't make that. And it's uncommon for a software company to really be able to make that transition. Many of the software companies that get started these days, private equity funded, they're looking to, work, get things started in a 3 to 5 year period.
Yep.
and then sell, and then hope that the install base can keep it going. But we managed through that period. Again, customers stayed with us. We came up with a product that has really stood us in good stead. It's been a great product for our customers to invest in. We've been able to continue to add to it and keep people upgraded along the way, and happy to be on that platform today.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. I had a couple. There are some really good questions that came in. Give me 1 second to find one that Matt had, one that I had as well. I think it was you, Matt. Oh no, it was John. Okay, John Radfansky. Sorry, John. John, I think, is that a Polish last name? We were just talking about Polish last names. Is your product geared more toward the trucking industry, or is there functionality for, let's say, a chemical shipper that ships rail, truck, marine? Ooh, good
Our
question,
two
John.
primary markets, are, trucking, and I'll even say primarily for-hire trucking, both truckload and LTL. And so we've added the LTL 10 years ago, and we're seeing people want to handle full, freight volumes in both capacities. And we've also done extremely well in the freight brokerage segment. And most trucking companies these days have a brokerage operation as well. So having the two together in one system has served us very well, served our customers very well. We do have a number of private fleets that we work with.
Mm-hmm.
Tyson, I think, is the largest one at this point, but ADM and Cargill and several large fleet carriers. We tend to do better, if the private fleet, has some for-hire characteristics in terms of the way they pay the drivers, or maybe they try to haul some outside freight to fill up empty legs. But we've got, full ability to run a weekly schedule and do many of the things that the private fleets like to do. That would fit more of the shipper model. We don't do a full, shipper TMS, like an OTM or a 3G TMS. That's not we're not playing in that segment at this point.
So there was one other point that I wanted to point out. Give me 1 second. Frank says, I've always been a McLeod user back in my truckload days. Now, folks, I have heard this a lot. We'll address this actually in just a little bit. Brandon Bay, I see your comment. We'll totally address it in a little bit, but I want to hear more of this story. So over the years, I want to follow your storyline for a little bit, just because it's so interesting. I haven't had, besides someone in the trucking industry, I haven't had someone who has been in the software side that's been in our industry for this long. So tell me what is everything like? What's so different now about our industry versus back in maybe the 80s and 90s, whatever time period you want to pick, or nothing. You can tell me. It's like this industry's still antiquated. It's weird.
Yeah. Well, no, it has been very interesting. And, I guess in my focus and being able to stay with one thing for a long time, I felt like I've been able to get more accomplished than if I'd been bouncing around, which really had been my previous kind of style. My wife had really helped me focus and stay with one thing and see the value of doing, extremely well or doing your best in one area. And especially with software, it really takes that to continue to be able to keep up. I learned that very early in software development practice, that boy, you were going to have to really focus on one area. And initially we really narrowed it down, and until we got traction in a market, and then got company size and the wherewithal in order to be able to expand the footprint of our product. Because once you develop a piece of software, you're not done by any means.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a baby being born. It's going to require more and more development as time goes on, because especially people in the transportation industry, they're just amazingly creative. And boy, you can show them this big, powerful thing that you're excited about, but they can quickly, within a half an hour, come up with another 10 years worth of work for you to get done. So you need to, be able to, continue to develop and to keep going if you want to continue to be a player in the market. Thankfully, as I mentioned earlier, we started at a time when most companies were putting in systems for the very first time. So an entry-level system, that worked well for us. And at the same time, many of the trucking companies were kind of at an entry-level management capability. They were starting out. Many of those early companies were where a truck driver decided to come off the road, and his claim to fame was the ability to spec a truck with the drivetrain and the engine type and the cab that would work well for a certain application. and was able to make money. And for the first 10 or 15 years, boy, the trucking industry in the 80s and 90s was really in almost an adolescent phase. Their costs were going down. Fuel costs for that period stayed flat at around $1 a gallon for diesel fuel. You were getting 4.5 miles a gallon in 1985. By the end of the 90s, you were getting 6 or 7 miles to the gallon. So, your fuel cost per mile was going down. In 85, it was 7,500 miles between oil changes. By the late 90s, it was 30,000. Again, your maintenance costs were going down. And, a lot of companies did very well during that period, but it's kind of a free for all. So when we crossed over 2000, the EPA regulations started hitting.
Yep.
Fuel prices started going up, and we really saw maturity. We have in the management teams at trucking companies. And really, we also saw pretty good growth in the freight brokerage industry. That's always been there, and it's not as large of a market, but during that period, more and more shippers were outsourcing the management of their freight, and that's created that intermediary organization. But anyway, we've really seen a maturity of the management teams at the trucking companies over especially the last 20 years, including the last 10 years. Many of them gotten very sophisticated. That creates well-managed companies. I think that's a healthy thing. It also means it's, maybe a little bit harder to start out. We see experienced executives able to start up new companies and find a niche and do well. But you can't start out just as somebody trying to spec the truck a little better and make it that way. So,
how do you stay focused when there are so many options regarding features and other markets you could go into, and the world's a little bit of your oyster? I imagine, I'm just thinking about what your wife had said about staying focused, and it feels like there's so many ways, different directions you could go, and being spread too thin might be the death of you. Not you, but some software person.
Yeah, there certainly are a lot of opportunities, and there do seem to be a fair number of people bouncing around these days, chasing the next new technology.
Yeah, they do.
And the new technologies, new programming languages, new environments, come along pretty quickly and really come and go pretty quickly. So again, a principle we've tried to apply is using the tools and the technologies that are going to get the best whole product support. But we're almost constantly in a refresh mode these days. We're bringing, our latest releases have introduced new technologies, and we'll be refreshing technologies. Thankfully, our architectural decisions made 20 years ago during our rewrite are standing us in good stead because they've put our business logic in a middle tier, so our server side logic is reusable and able to keep going and allowing us to build on top of that. So
that makes sense. I read this article that as a software company, when you are deciding which feature to allow, because I know customers probably come to you saying, I want this, I want that, I want this. They put it in categories like, is this a feature that you must have as a company? Or is this like a delightful feature? And then there's like one other category, and it was like a surprise or something like that. So tell me, is that like how you guys decide on which feature, or is it just what's the ROI on this feature, and is this just something we are going to have to push to another time frame?
Well, we use multiple input sources when we make our development selection, and thankfully we've been able to greatly increase the amount of development we're doing each year as our company has grown. We're going back to the 80s when we had 5 or 10 employees. And now at 540 employees, we can do a whole lot more in terms of development. And we have been able to continue to increase our investment in the development. But we have a very open and collaborative process with our customers. We may talk about our user conference, which is coming up next week. But
yes.
One part of that conference is our advisory council meetings we have with customers who will come in and rank our planned development items that are on the roadmap and help us to prioritize. And we'll also make comments on the functionality. And we'll look for a core group, really a focus group, to give us feedback throughout the development process, to keep us on track, help make sure we get the features in there that are going to make things work right out of the box as we're adding things. And we'll always have a big list of items to get into future releases. But our customers always surprise us the way that they prioritize things. That's helped us come up with get the best payoff things into the product quicker. And we get feedback from the marketplace. Prospective customers give us their input, and that's very important to us to meet all the needs that we can going forward. And that's been very successful for us to keep us on track.
So I've heard over and over again, great product, but McLeod is incredibly expensive. It's a la carte. It's charges left and right. And I think even in the comments, we saw some of that as well. Is that because you are more geared to the larger customers and the smaller brokers and truckers probably should use some of the smaller software? I'm not being an asshole. I'm just trying to see I'm just trying to understand the product market. That's all.
I guess I'll be the judge of that, Cassandra.
Yep. I guess you will be.
Well, it's expensive because it's expensive to do what we do, unfortunately. When you got to meet payroll every 2 weeks for 500 people. And, we've got 1,100 active customers on our system, which is a large installed base of, again, mid-sized to large carriers primarily, and large brokers. I mean, we have freight brokers with several hundred users. But some of them, starting in around 5 users, that'd be kind of the entry level for our type of product. But I can't sell 100,000 copies a year of our transportation software. There aren't that many prospects. If there were, it'd be impossible to make any money in the transportation business. But you take something like QuickBooks, they can spend way more on development than we do, but they can sell 1 million copies a year, and that's a function of software pricing. The thing is, if we don't price our product and our service correctly, we don't have the funds to number one, staff adequately to provide the service that these companies are looking for. After the sale and for years, once they make this development, they begin to build their business process around these tools. They don't want to change that out every 2 or 3 years. And there's a lot to it. And so, maintaining the staff to provide that service, that's crucial. And then number 2, to continue to do the development so that there are additional features coming down the pike. Again, fairly expensive, dividing that by the number of, trucking companies there are in the world, or in the country. At this point, we're only in the US and Canada markets. But certainly we're trying to deliver the best value. And we have seen
you guys
that.
are the Mercedes of the software industry.
Well, if you have software product that's only doing half the job, that can be a whole lot more expensive than having, let's say our product that's, that's doing twice as much for you. If it can make your business much more efficient and save, headcount, help you take advantage of an opportunity in the market that you wouldn't be able to get to otherwise, that can be worth a whole lot more than, than even what we're charging for software. So.
Makes sense. I saw that Frank said most trucking companies do not fully utilize all of the tools within software to reduce staff and increase productivity. That's a good point, Frank. That's very interesting. Delivery Chain said, we recommend McLeod for new brokerages. We've heard from international shippers, McLeod is not very compatible. Is that by design?
Well, we have not entered the freight forwarding market or customs brokerage market. That's a very specialized area.
Hmm.
I am familiar with some of the companies that do that. I think WiseTech out of Australia probably is the largest company in that area with their CargoWise product, and they've done that through consolidation of numbers of small carriers. But that's an area that we have not yet entered. We don't have plans in the near term to enter that market, but yeah, handling shipments in and out of the country again requires some very specialized functionality, and we're still feel like we have pretty good room to run in the truckload carrier market as well as the freight brokerage market here in North America.
Oh yeah. Matt Fink has one of my favorite questions that I had as well. Lots of disruption. He put it in quotation marks because we talk about that a lot on this show. It's our trendy word that annoys all of us sometimes. Lots of disruption, although you may call it normal. Matt, can you give us a sneak peek into the future and what you're working on? Also, do you see anything now that impresses you? And you'll probably talk about this at your user conference, I imagine, too.
Matt, you've got an inside track? I mean, spent 2 hours this morning with my VP of marketing working on my user conference opening speech, which I get to deliver Monday morning at 8 a.m. And it's about disruption.
Yeah,
and
that
the
word.
things that are coming down the pike. A lot of things, and not just in the software technology industry, that are coming down that will require changes and adjustments for most the companies in transportation. We're going to talk about everything from electric vehicles to autonomous vehicles to, good grief, the nuclear verdict climate that we have here in terms of the legal climate and what can be done there. But in terms of software, more connectivity, more visibility, more seamless connectivity between trading partners, more automation of day-to-day tasks so that the users can spend more time dealing with exceptions or cultivating customer relationships instead of handling routine things that the systems can better handle. We're building a lot of that into and providing the tools to make the product more configurable and more automated in order to help accomplish that. But those things take a while to get ingrained in the organization. The comment a while ago was that people don't fully utilize the system they have. And we work very hard to try and help people get their money's worth out of this large investment, that they make into our products. And we really would like to see people get good return on the investment and fully utilizing it, because they're going to need to get there in order to get to the next step, the next things that are coming down the highway. It makes their businesses more valuable. It makes their services more valuable to their customers. And I hope we can help our customers get there.
Craig Decker comes in with a last minute question while we wrap things up. Craig is probably going to be on the show one of these days. I look forward to having him on. Would you look to provide service as an aggregator? Ooh, good question, Craig. Would you look to provide services as an aggregator to truckers, given that you have so many utilizing your software? Craig Decker.
Well, now, are you talking about a freight aggregator?
I bet he's talking about the data.
Aggregating freight. Well, that's one of the topics for my Monday. By the way, so our user conference in Grapevine, Texas will be in the Dallas area. I'm flying out tomorrow to be there. It starts Sunday night with a reception. And Monday and Tuesday, great sessions from our customers showing what they're doing that's working well in the marketplace. And one of those things is utilizing the market data. Yet we have a database. It's an aggregated database where we're keeping up with rate information and rate trends through yesterday. We're delivering this back to our customers. It's only available to companies that are running our system, but we show the rate by freight type, by lane, and we're given some very flexible ways to view that data and incorporate that into pricing decisions. we see that as one of the things that really need to become a core competency for any company that expects to be able to compete going forward as rate information becomes more and more transparent. Where the economy's going, potentially inflation kicking in, the constrained capacity that we're seeing right now makes it all the more important to stay on top of rate information. And we've got a lot of tools that let you do that. And we'll be talking about those next Monday. Hope to see you there.
Yeah, I'm excited. So how's attendance looking? I'm sure everyone just wants to get out and network.
Yeah, we have, even with the rise in COVID cases, we're approaching a record number of attendance for our event. And we will have over 1,000 people there at the event there in Dallas next week.
That's exciting. We're about to wrap up. Just Frank, who's on fire today, has one really good question. Thank you, Zeke. With the explosion, I like how you use quotation marks because Frank, you're right. This explosion's been going on for a while. In the e-commerce and final mile delivery, do you have plans to expand the dispatch system to help us manage final mile?
We are taking a look at final mile software characteristics. Our LTL product really puts us in pretty good position to look at that. We're also talking to other potential trading partners. We interface with over 150 other providers that have various products and services, everything from mobile communications to fuel cards, to mileage services and routing. And so we are taking a look at that as more carriers have gotten into that final mile piece, competing with Amazon and the post office, as well as UPS and FedEx. A lot going on there. But again, our LTL product has many of those features built in as well. So
I love it. You guys have heard from the OG of transportation software. We are so lucky to have you. Have fun at your user conference. Will people be able to watch it live as well? Some of your users?
We are not doing a hybrid conference. It's
fully in person. You're gonna see another human and be able to say hello to them. That is so exciting. So everybody who's in Dallas who uses this software, I'm sure you can still probably join and you're gonna have such a great time. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. As usual, we are going to I just totally forgot what I was going to say. Either way, you guys, it's Friday. The brain is so
it's a
close.
Recorded session, right?
Yeah.
Listen to it later.
No, this is not permanently. Tim Pool's here. Oh, Amanda Miller's here. Have a great Friday. Thank you for your questions and participation, everybody. And stay out of trouble. We will see you next week on Mad Gains Live.
Thank you.